Hey Josh, it's Wednesday, and first off, to answer your question from last week, if I remember correctly, it was if I really do think Ohio will be safe to reopen beginning of May. I'm not really sure. It's sort of a toss-up right now. I feel like it'd be better safe than sorry, but at the same time, I'm going a bit stir crazy of being inside. But I do still want people to be safe, and I want people to be sure that, or I want to try and stop the spread of COVID as much as possible. But I don't know. I Governor DeWine has been making very smart decisions lately, which he's very much gone for his own initiative rather than on the initiative of the president. So if he and his experts think that Ohio will be safe to open, then I feel like it'll be safe to open. We'll see if that gets extended, though, which I have a feeling that it might, because the curve hasn't gone down as much as I would have expected it to. So we'll see. But yeah, for this video, I'm actually gonna talk a little bit about something that I did earlier today. So I, of course, have been playing a lot of Persona 5 The Royal. I talked about it the other day, or the other week in one of my videos, and I've been mentioning about Jungian Psychology, and Mom, last week was like, hey, I have an assignment for you, and she wanted me to do some more research into Jungian Psychology, and make a presentation as if I was teaching. I will go ahead and put this camera down so that I can grab my notes. Everything is fine. Alright. There we go. Probably should have done that from the start. Anyway, so I will go ahead and talk a little bit about that, because why not? It's something to talk about. So I know I've talked about Jungian Psychology in a past video, few past videos, I'm sure, and at that time I didn't really understand a lot of the things that were being talked about, and I was more so basing it off of what I knew from the Persona games. There's a bit of a difference, though, I have found. I'm going to put these on, because I have to do some reading. I need to get a haircut. I think I've mentioned that the past 3 weeks. Anyway, Jungian Psychology, or as it's also referred to as Analytic Psychology, it was one of the first theories that branched off from Sigmund Freud and his ideas of the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and the subconscious mind. Carl Jung had a very similar viewpoint, but very different at the same time. And it's actually because Jung was a colleague of Sigmund Freud's, and Jung disagreed with the idea of the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind, because according to Freud, the subconscious was where you put all of the dark feelings and thoughts and things that you've repressed. Jung thought thought of it in a different viewpoint, where he had a separate part of the psyche known as the shadow, which I've talked about in past videos as well. The shadow is sort of the dark desires and sort of twisted thoughts and ideas and feelings that you as a person have. anything that sort of fits into that, sorry, anything that would not fit into a regular social norm is thought of as being part of the shadow of your psyche. A bit of the reverse of that is the persona, which before I thought that the persona was the true self of the of your psyche. But that's because that's what it is in the Persona series, and that is incorrect. The persona is actually the masks that you put on to fit into different social groups. So you have a certain mask that you wear around your family, a certain mask you wear around your friends, a certain mask you wear around your coworkers. And the persona, it's very easy to get lost in that and not really know the true self. So that is something that you need to keep an eye out for when you're using Jungian psychology to sort of explain certain things that you're doing, which it doesn't really work. I'll get to that eventually, but another big part of Jungian psychology, which is a very interesting part, I feel, is the idea of the anima and the animus. The anima is psychological traits that are more feminine in nature, and the animus is the reverse, where it is the more masculine traits and such. And according to Carl Jung, it is very important to have a balance between the two of them. This was back in the time before gender norms were slightly different, and so he believed that in order to better understand yourself, you had to know about the opposite gender of your anima and animus. So if you were male, you needed to know, you had to be in tune enough with your anima, and if you were female, you needed to be in tune enough with your animus. Of course, gender is a bit different now, and so it doesn't 100% fit, so the way that people view it now is that you just have to have a good balance of both. Another important thing with Jungian psychology is the idea of the collective unconscious and the archetypes and symbols that are in that mindset. So the collective unconscious is thought of as being the deepest part of a person's psyche, and therefore it is sort of the root of all of your all of your passions and your your passions, desires, all of that is connected to the collective unconscious. And the collective unconscious tries to communicate with people, with us, by using symbols and archetypes, which is a very fascinating idea, because archetypes are sort of the structure of society, and Jung viewed them as primordial ideas that have been inherited through evolution, and it is the building blocks of personality. So the different archetypes are sort of similar ideas that are found throughout a lot of literary works, because Jung actually originally was doing research into mythology and folklore before he got into psychology more, and he noticed all these connecting factors, such as like the sage, or also known as the wise old man. So that's everything from Gandalf to Odin to Dumbledore to just any sort of mentor character in just about any mythology or literary works. Another very common archetype to be found is the outlaw, which is that has things like, that has people like Robin Hood and Loki, who are complete opposites in their nature, but the way that the outlaw is viewed, or it's also known as the rebel, or it is every so often referred to as the trickster as well, they basically take social norms and crush them. Oh, I am going over. Okay. So the outlaw takes social norms and sort of tears them down and to their very core in order to essentially rebuild the idea of society. Another common one is things like the hero, which is just about every main protagonist in every mainline series that are all they're strong, powerful beings that they put others before themselves usually, and they like to they are the hero. There's really no other way of phrasing it. So obviously that's in just about everything. The other ones are, I will pull up this one here. This was actually something that Mom printed out for me. So in order, in most orders, the 12 archetypes go the sage, the innocent, the explorer, the ruler, the creator, the caregiver, the magician, the hero, the rebel or the outlaw, the lover, the jester, and the orphan or the everyman. I don't want to go too much over because I already know that I'm going to have to cut some stuff out of this in order to make it fit within the time frame, but it's just a very fascinating idea that really makes sense when you look at it from a literary standpoint. I'm not 100% convinced on the actual psychological explanations behind it, but it makes sense in a literary standpoint where all of these characters that are revisited throughout all of humanity, essentially, in mythologies, folklores, even just stories that people are writing now. It is a very fascinating idea that I'm planning on doing a bit more research into. This is a very 101, what is the word? A 101 crash course, basically, of Jungian psychology and just sort of the ideas behind it and not so much the applicableness of it. So I guess that'll do for this video. So Josh, my question for you, I'll have two questions for this. One, are you going to give me a punishment for going over with this? Because I'm sure even if I cut things down, it'll still be over. And two, what do you think about Jungian psychology? And how do you think it might, how do you think you might be able to use it in any sort of way? Personally, for me, I feel like I'm more so going to use it as a literary standpoint, where I'm basically going to be making characters that sort of revolve around one of the ideas of these archetypes. So that'll do it for this video. So Josh, I will see you on Friday. Please don't give me a punishment. I'm very passionate about this. So, alright, later, bro.